I have some valuable information for you if you are interested in pinning or needling your skin. So I'm going to share with you what I know from many years of using these things. And there are 3 different ways you can do it. There are needle rollers, which is what I prefer. There are also stamps. Just like a stamp, they come in various sizes. Some are round, square, rectangular. They're different surface area and different needle lengths. And they work exactly like a stamp. And the surface would be like this, and you would basically stamp it with your own manpower. The last option is a Derma stamp. And a Derma stamp is a plug-in or chargeable system that electrically pulsates the stamping mechanism onto the skin. It's a round head about the size of a dime, and the surface area comes with various numbers of needles from 8 to 16, I believe. You determine the length of the needle that will penetrate into the skin. I don't use stamps. It doesn't mean that they aren't better or they aren't your best solution, but I prefer the rollers personally. If you are interested in a roller, these are the different things that I have to share with you about those. As soon as I open a roller, it's my roller. It's not to be used by or on anyone else. If you need to label them because you have several people in the house that are using them, then I suggest doing that or buying different colors. I always label mine with the needle length on it, the date I started using it, and I often also indicate where I'm using it. I don't use needle rollers on my face, on my legs, or my arms, for example. I tend to separate them. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but that's just a personal preference. The blood circulation on your face is very, very different than it is on your arms and legs. And that means your microbiomes on your arms and legs are also different, and I don't want any possibility of those transferring from one place to another. There are different types of rollers. This is your standard roller size right here. This is what you will find most frequently. And this roller right here has 180 or 192 needles on it. And this one, which is the same, pretty much the same size, has about 540 pins on the same surface area. More pins is not better, less pins is not better either. They create different results and they feel very, very differently. The more pins you have on the roller, I find it to be far more comfortable and less painful. And fewer needles tends to be a little bit more gripping. So if you are just starting off on this, I would suggest buying rollers with a higher density number of needles on them than fewer. It will get you used to the process, and you can learn how to use them with the least amount of discomfort as you sort yourself out and figure out how you want to use them or if you want to use them at all. There are also rollers that only have a row of 3 needles. They're very narrow, and I didn't pull one of those out to show you, but they would be good. For example, this crease right here, I wouldn't do it on my arm, but you have creases probably on your face and your cheek lines or your brow that you might want to alleviate or fill in a little bit more. And so you would want a very narrow roller so that you could get right into that crease right there. And that would give you the best results. You also have much wider rollers, and these can cover a bigger surface area in a smaller amount of time, which you might prefer, which I prefer when I'm doing on my arms and legs. If I open up a roller and I drop it, or it falls in the sink, or it's, for whatever reason, it lands on a hard surface, I immediately throw it away because I can't use dull needles that will damage the skin a little bit too much in ways that are not going to create the results I want. And the protective cases always protect the needles from having any contact with any surface. And there's different types of cases. There's this small type. There's also the full plastic case that keeps them. And there are also the end cases that kind of pop right off. I don't find a preference. I find they all work and they're all good and they're all easy. I do, however, with these cases, I put a rubber band around them because sometimes they come a little bit loose. So I secure them that way so that they don't come out. Your needles will need to be changed out if they are dull, and you will notice because it feels differently as you pin on your skin. It may hurt a little bit more. I also notice that my needles are dull when I get blood blisters underneath the surface of the skin, and the blood is not coming through the skin, but it's staying underneath. That's another indication for me that the pins need to be changed out. I always sterilize my pins before and after I use them. There are different ways to do this. Some people prefer to put out a jar and fill it with alcohol, and they just put it in here and they just they hold it. You wouldn't want to put the roller in here on a hard surface on the glass because you're going to damage your needles, and you don't want to do that. So if you prefer on plunging your rollers into alcohol and letting them be in alcohol all the time, then you might be better with a case that's open like this, that you pop off and you put it in. That way you could put it in the alcohol and let it rest there as you want it to. One disadvantage to doing that is that the alcohol will get on the joint of the roller, and it may make your roller less movable and more rigid, which can make pinning a little bit more uncomfortable. And you might have to put some sort of coconut oil or argan oil in the sides to lubricate the rolling mechanism. But that is another option. I tend to use rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle. I find that's the easiest way for me to do it, and I will show you right now. I will just spray it, and I spray it on both sides, and I try to get it all the way around. I put it back in its case to dry. I don't roller my skin when the alcohol is still wet, because that is going to make it a lot more uncomfortable. But I'll spray it, and then I will disinfect my skin. You can use rubbing alcohol if you prefer. I like witch hazel because it's less irritating for my skin. I have really sensitive skin, and I found this to be the most beneficial with the best results without irritating my skin. So I put it on some paper towel, and then I will rub the surface area that I'm going to be pinning. I'm going to use my arm as an example today. The reasons why you might want a derma roller are it will thicken your skin, it will promote hair growth, and it can be good for scar removal. I have had great results with certain types of scars. I have seen absolutely no improvement on other scars, and that's even after several years of use. You do not ever want to pin on a keloid scar. If you don't know what a keloid scar is, you can look it up. You probably will know if you have one. Scars on certain parts of my body would go away, and the same type of scar on a different part would not. There's no real set rule. If someone tells you it's going to work, they may not know. The only way you're really going to know is if you give your body a chance to try it out and see how it responds to it. The longer the needle is not necessarily better. It just depends on what your desired result is and what your skin is like and where you're using it. Longer is not necessarily better. And if you are starting out, I would go with a shorter needle so that you can get used to it, because it is quite uncomfortable. And if you are interested in doing it on your face, I would definitely suggest getting comfortable rollering on your arm or your leg so that you get an idea of what it feels like and how to use it, because your face is going to be a lot more sensitive. I began using it because the skin on my arms was getting to be like tissue paper, and it was very fragile, and I needed to make my skin thicker. It did make my skin dramatically thicker. It increased hair growth, which didn't really bother me because the hair on my arms is blonde. But if you have dark hair and you're in laser treatments for hair removal, you might not want that. So you might want to be attentive and watch for what is happening. So I'm going to pin right now, and I'm going to show you how I do it and some of the things that you need to know if you're going to be pinning. You don't want to pin on a surface that's irregular like that. You want to make the surface as flat as you possibly can. So you want to distort normal movements to create as flat a surface as possible, because you want the pins to cover as much surface area without interference as possible. And I'm just going to show you very quickly, but when I'm doing this myself, I count how many times I've rolled, and I do the same amount of rollering all over. And you will see that I've already drawn blood here, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the damage is what forces the body to respond to the area to create repair. So I'm going to keep rollering, and on my wrist I have little crease lines. I do not want to roll over the crease lines, because if I do, I will increase the depth of the creases, and that is not what I want to do. So I want to distort my wrist, fold it over, and I want to roll into and over the very flat, stretched out skin. And I'm still going to do this very fast. So you see, I try to cover my whole arm, and I go all the way around. And I do about 20 return trips back and forth. So I'll do about 20 of those, and I'll count them. And I will stretch out my skin, and I will orientate I don't want to roller over that line, but if I'm rollering on this stretched out skin, that's okay. So that's kind of how I do it. I go all the way around. I even do the inside here. And I will count. And when I'm done, I will respray the roller, because it is really important. I haven't finished, but I'm going to finish later when I'm done with the video. And when I'm done, I put aloe on my skin. And I use unscented organic aloe that has basically only aloe in it. This is what I like. If you have a cream that you enjoy or that you find really helps your skin, then that's probably what you want to use. There's different techniques for rollering. As you saw, I just went back and forth. I keep the roller in contact with my skin, but there are other methods that some people believe are better, and I don't have a rule. I don't know what's better. I just know what has worked for me personally. But some people believe that you put the roller down, you drag it, you lift, you put it back, you drag, lift, push down, drag, lift. So it just depends on what you want to do and how your skin is responding, because if you're doing it, you want your skin to respond. So whatever is creating the best results is what you really should be doing. The other technique is you roller back and forth, and then the idea that you do crossways to get a different orientation to the needles. And then you can even go diagonal, and then you can go diagonal in the other direction. And those are just other options for getting different results or creating more damage to the skin. More damage may create the results you need. You can see my skin is getting a little bit red from needling. And you're drawing all the blood to the surface of the skin right here. And whatever is in your blood circulation is going to be what is repairing the skin. So if you have just gone out and eaten a taco at fast food or a hamburger with processed cheese and lots of chemicals, all of those pesticides, herbicides in your food are going to be in your bloodstream, and your body is going to have no choice but to use that blood to repair the damage. I hate the expression that they say, you are what you eat, but it's true. You are what you eat, because your bloodstream is what your body is using to clean, break down, and rebuild. So whatever is in your bloodstream is going to be used to repair the damage that you're creating with the needles. The results are definitely worth it, and if you're interested, I suggest you try it out. And the place that I buy my pin rollers is eBay or Amazon.